Isn't it?
Right, so we're just ready to start.
All right, today is April 17, 2025. This is special board meeting for the board of registration for professional engineers and land surveyors. We are in the commissioners hearing room of the Benton County Administration Building in Kennewick, Washington. And I'm going to start by a roll call. Actually, let's just go around the table from Chris for starters.
Yeah, Christina Horton, Deputy Director of Board of Registration for Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors.
Ken Fuller. Mike on board.
Maureen Jackson, board member.
Aaron Blaisdell, board member.
Marjorie Lund, board chair.
Doug Henderson.
Dave Peden, board member.
Bryce Dickinson, board staff.
Mackenzie Ware, board staff.
Okay, and we're waiting on Matt to join us this morning in person, online. Elizabeth Lagerberg, Greg Shepperstein, Schieferstein, Jill Short, Kevin Ballard, Randy Garcia, Shannon Gillespie, Donna Kramer. Down, is there any other
That is it in
names?
the meeting right now.
And Matt Rasmussen has walked in person. Is that everyone in the meeting?
Correct.
All right, thank you. All right, item 1.2, order of the agenda. I need a motion.
Go ahead.
Second.
Any discussion about the order of agenda? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We are going to go into an executive session. And since we have no guests currently online, I'm not going to read the notification. We expect to be in closed session until 9:30. It's now 8:33. And we will reconvene at 9:30. Please stop the recording and lock the spiel for the guests.
We are recording.
All right, so executive session. The chair will announce the purpose and estimate the duration of executive session. No formal board actions will be taken during executive session. Pursuant to RCW 4230-110 and for the purposes set forth therein, the board will move into executive session portion of the meeting to consult with the board attorney to discuss matters related to enforcement and cases in current litigation. The executive session will last until 9:30. Once the board session concludes, the board will reconvene in open session. Thank you, Elizabeth. Close the recording has been started, and the board is not complete with their closed session and needs to continue their coordination with their attorney. We are going to go back into closed session until 10 a.m. and we'll open it again then. Kinsey, please stop the recording. Aaron, do you want?
I believe so. I don't think that there's an understanding of the process.
We're back in.
All right, we still have items in closed session, so I'm going to ask you to close the meeting again for another 10 minutes.
Oh.
We there?
Just making sure that I,
Okay. We are back in open session. It's April 17th, 2025. The special board meeting of the Board of Registration of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors of Washington State. And it is 10:11. And we are going right into approval of the February 13th, 20. So before I actually go on, do we have any guests that have joined us?
No guests have joined us since we've unlocked the meeting.
Okay,
I move approval. That sounds good.
I second.
we have a motion and a second on the approval of the February 13th, 2025 meeting minutes as written. Any discussion?
I would have one discussion, and add that I be listed as absent. Under the board members portion.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't listed as being absent either,
Okay, it's important.
but I wasn't present, so I
Yeah.
figured
Yeah, not present.
that implies I was absent.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, just,
Neither
yeah,
were listed.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion to approve the February 13th minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 1.3 is public comment opportunity, but we have no public present. Item 3.1, case deliberation. Jill, can you lead us through that?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. So we have three case closure recommendations this time. The first one is case number 2024-03-0530-00 LSV, and Mr. Rasmussen is the case manager.
And you read the report in open session.
Complaint summary. The complaint stems around a survey performed by a respondent on behalf of complainant to resolve a boundary dispute and fence location between two neighbors. Complainant hired respondent in October 2022 to complete the survey. Once the survey was complete, complainant did not agree with the location of the boundary line as determined by respondent. Complainant appears to have provided his own documentation supporting his determination of the boundary location to respondent, but respondent did not change his location of the boundary line based on the documentation provided. A survey was reported in March of 2023. Complaint alleges that the boundary is an error and improper, asking for investigation by the board. There are numerous other allegations made by complainant against his neighbors and employees of the respondent that have no bearing on this case. Facts. Respondent did complete a survey on behalf of complainant. Respondent claims the complainant had the opportunity to review the survey prior to it being recorded, but did not do so. Survey was recorded in March of 2023. It's unclear when the actual field work was performed, but it appears that the recording may have taken place within 4 months after the survey work was done based on the file. Survey appears to meet the requirements of WAC 332-130-050. Complainant, after recording, tried to convince respondent that his determination of boundary was an error and provided his own documentation and opinions on the boundary. Respondent declined to amend his survey based on the documentation provided. PDH log provided by a respondent was reviewed and appears to be in order. Case manager review of this file is not to determine the accuracy of the survey nor the location of the boundary, but rather if a violation of RCW or WAC has occurred. Based on the evidence provided, it does not appear that any violation has occurred, recommending closure with no further action.
May I have a motion to accept the case manager's recommendation? Maureen made motion
I'll second it.
and Aaron seconded. Is there any questions for Matt? All those in favor of the motion to accept the case manager's recommendation, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Matt, you are to abstain.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. Jill?
Okay, the next case is number 2024-08-2200-00ENG, and Miss Jackson is the case manager.
The complaint summary, a complaint was filed alleging a foreign entity. The respondent company was awarded a project and the company did not have a certificate of authority or COA with the board, nor were they licensed as a PE or contractor in Washington State at the time of the bid or award. Upon receiving the complaint, the owner of the company was contacted. He explained that they do have a licensed PE on staff who applied for a comedy license with the board on July 26, 2024. They were waiting for the PE's license to be issued prior to submitting an application for a COA, as he will be the designated engineer. The company's response to the request for proposal for the project was submitted on July 8, 2024, and they were awarded the project on July 24, 2024. On September 27, 2024, the company's PE was granted a Washington PE license, and the COA was issued October 30th, 2024. The company is now in compliance. Recommendations: I recommend that the respondent be given remedial counseling on RCW 18-3010, specifically the requirement to be registered with the board prior to submitting a proposal to perform professional engineering work within the state. This remedial counseling has been done. I recommend that this case be closed with no further action.
May I have a motion?
Move to approve the case manager's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the case manager's recommendation. Questions for Maureen?
I have a question regarding the time elapse. The time that elapsed between when the respondent did not have a license versus when they did have a license, and whether or not it was clear to them that they were offering services without having a license.
Jill, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, they were made clear that, yes, that was offering services and that it should not have occurred, and that to make sure, in the future with our state, make sure their licenses are current, or in any other state that they may apply for a job bid, that to make sure that they are licensed properly before applying for the job.
Any other questions for Maureen?
Well, it seems like it's your belief after investigating this, that it wasn't a malicious, it was just ignorance on our laws and rules.
Agreed. I don't believe it was malicious.
And another question, I'm still confused. Our process, the remedial counseling happened. Do we issue a letter with that remedial counseling content in the letter to the respondent?
Jill, can you answer?
Yeah, yes. So yes, Dave, when we send the closure notification to the respondent, we notify them then that, per the remedial counseling, licensees are required to meet the, and we specify the specific WAC or RCW that could have possibly been violated. We do spell that out so that in the future, if something happens, we have it documented and we can show that you've been talked to before about this.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Yeah, so it just, in my eyes, or in my mind, there's still a question whether, I don't think that it was malicious but I think that the negligence of having a license and when they offered services, I think is in conflict with me based on what I've heard. So
Any other questions for
No.
Maureen?
The questions, or are we allowed to make comments?
That's discussion.
Yeah.
It's discussion.
I guess my main concern with it is that they had an avenue within the statute to be able to apply for this, had they applied for licensure prior to submitting the proposal, they would have been in compliance. I mean, have a negligent, ignorance of the law doesn't mean we shouldn't make them follow. So I have a concern with that.
Another comment before the vote is that it's my observation that this board is more focused on education of our licensees, not necessarily being punitive to our licensees. And if we decide to change that, we really should be thinking that way in future cases that we review. Because I think we've seen similar infractions, if you will, that were corrected and weren't malicious. And we're educating our licensees through this complaint process. So if we take a different stance now, we better be prepared to start doing that on future complaints.
so on that, I would agree with you, Dave. But I think that those past discussions have been that they may have been licensed but not have a COA in place. They may have been expired in their individual license that they had not renewed. That once they renewed, they were in compliance. Or their COA had lapsed and they hurried up and got that into compliance. I'm not so sure that this is something that we would call a norm where no one has a license, there's no licensee, no COA, no nothing. And a firm gets awarded. So they've gone through the proposal process and they get awarded, and then they decide to submit their application for licensure. I think that this would be and I'm not so sure that it would be, something.
The others are violations too. You're practicing
So-
with an expired license if you didn't renew it.
Absolutely.
We have a case in front of us. We have a case manager's recommendation, and that's what we should focus on. Other discussions as to how we should proceed.
Well, I think it's pertinent to the vote,
Okay,
because if we agree to not accept it and we send it back, or there's another motion that,
then we're setting a precedence
Yeah.
that you feel is,
absolutely.
yeah, I guess, I think we are also making some assumptions about this particular situation. And we can vote according to whether we think that needs further review also. So all those in favor of accepting the case manager's recommendation to close the case, please say aye. And all those opposed?
Nay.
All right, and you abstain. The motion does not pass. So the case will go back to investigations. And it will probably be on the docket for the practice committee, case manager at that point, and how we proceed. Jill, next case.
Thank you. The next case is 2024-12-3615-00ENG, and Mr. Hendrickson is the case manager.
Thank you, Jill. In this case, the complainant alleged that he and a partner hired staff for the respondent to assess a need for a geotechnical report for a potential landslide zone for a property they wish to divide. Claimed hiring was in mid-August 24. Complainant claimed that several weeks later, they reached out to the respondent's staff who informed them that a site visit indicated that no geotechnical report was needed, but that the county required a letter stating this. The complainant alleged that a couple of months passed without actual communication, resulting in loss of surveyor services and at risk of land division permit expiring. As facts, the respondent communications state that staff was working with the complainant rather than respondent directly, and that no services contract had been executed and no retainer received. Respondent further claimed that complainant contacted respondent offices on same day as the board staff notified respondent of complaint, indicating that the county had inspected the site and informed the complainant that the requested geotechnical letter would not be required. Respondent indicated that their company intends to discontinue geotechnical work while their workload remains high, and that they conducted a staff meeting on project tracking timelines and communications with clients. It's the case manager's recommendation to close this with no further action, with reminder to the respondent to continue to work in compliance with WAC 196-27A, 21A, and 2B, which deals with honesty, timeliness, and clear and documented understanding and acceptance of work.
May I have a motion to accept the case manager's report?
Move to accept the case manager's report as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion or questions for the case manager? All those in favor of accepting the case manager's recommendation to close the case, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then abstain. Jill, is there any further cases?
No, there's no more further cases. Thank you.
You? All right, disciplinary report. Okay, up on the board, any comments from Jill or Randy about the reporting and how we're doing?
I do. My question regarding, we have two pro temps, Jim Wengler, PLS past board member, and Walt Dale, PLS. They are acting as pro temps, and they together they have 6 cases. Myself, I have 0, and Matt has 0 because he's not even listed under review. So I would like to question whether or not the 2 pro temps they're basically at their end of their reviews, or are they beginning their reviews, and what can current board members do to take the load off of our pro temps?
I can speak to that. So Mr. Wingler has cases that are the same respondent, which obviously makes him have a higher number. And Mr. Dale has a case that he's been reviewing it for a while, and it's we're waiting for action to happen. So really, I think that basically he really just has one that he's reviewing now. And the reason that, Aaron, that you don't have any right now is just because of your length of time that you got left. And we're trying to kind of just give you a break and to make sure that, we don't have to take your time after you're off your term is up. But we do, we have other cases that Matt will be will be getting, and then the new board member when they're appointed. And I don't know if Chris has anything to add or Ken.
I do have one case.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's just one case, and I have another one that's still open.
okay.
So the form needs to be updated to include you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry that report doesn't have you on there, Matt. We'll get you on.
I'm not heartbroken. I don't need any special publicity.
So with the numbers that I heard, Matt included, we have 20 survey cases for under review complaints. Is that a fair number?
where did you get 20?
Chris is reviewing 13
Oh, you're talking,
administratively. And Jim and Walt and Matt have a total of 7. So we have 20 survey cases.
Some of the 13 that is under me, we're still waiting for response. We're still waiting for some information. We have interviews set up.
they haven't been.
It's not ready yet to move them on to case managers.
Yeah.
So that's why that number looks really high.
Get ready for your 20 cases.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Thanks for
hear that
bringing it
we have someone who's anxious to do a few more.
I just,
Next 2 months.
I'm just looking at the 13 that Chris has, but in your explanation, those are not being reviewed by you, but they're
There's motion, there's movement on them.
everything from the complaint has been, intake to they're within some level of,
Yeah, like I've requested more information we're waiting on, or we set up an interview the next couple weeks, or.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's movement on them, just not ready to either send them to case manager yet or recommend administrative closure, so. We did get a big influx. I felt like, gosh, we closed some and then there comes a bunch more, so that just seems to be the way it goes.
Yeah, Chris has 14 cases. She actually has one introduced case too.
Only because he's trying to be a surveyor. Yeah, it's just a case that has some survey elements to it, so. Took that over.
All right, any
Just
other?
to follow up to that, is our intent to keep assigning cases to Jim and Walt and keep them as pro tems indefinitely, or?
Well, they have a 6-month window on any pro tem, so.
We renew every 6 months?
Yeah, so the
Yes.
intent is to keep
Well,
1 year.
1 year.
one more even.
We could keep them on, depending on our caseload and their desires, for another year.
Yeah,
Well, with another newer, new board member coming on for survey, we want to get Matt up to speed, we want to get that person up to speed. That's really the point of having the 2 pro tem land surveyors right now, is to help with that case
Sure.
management during those transitions.
no, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if that was the plan, is to
Yep.
keep assigning the cases. Okay.
Yeah, and I know, Aaron, I think there's a couple of you that are in legal.
yeah, we're legal.
For years, yeah.
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 Okay, thank you, Jill. All right, let's move into committee reports. Exam qualifications committee. Mike?
Thanks, Marjorie. The EQ committee met yesterday, both in this room and virtually. Present were the committee, myself, Maureen, and Matt, as well as support staff, and Chris, Shannon, Jill, Randy, Vonna, Bryce, Kevin Ballard, Greg Schieferstein, and Nick Ben. And then we had guests, Levi Johnson and Michael Troutman. I had several items on the agenda. The first being review applications for engineering licensure. All told, we reviewed 3 applications and 2 400-degree evaluations. Of those, there were several that we recommended that we get additional information. So there was an action item that came from that discussion that Vonna is going to reach out to those applicants that were identified to request additional information. CES evaluations on the 400-degree evaluations to move those applications forward. Any questions on the application review?
Can you just remind me, we're kind of doing random reviews of, or what? Why were you reviewing these?
No, these were ones that Vonna felt should go before the committee for additional,
Vonna, and then
Input.
I believe they might come to Ken next.
Yeah.
And if Ken believes that they bear discussion by the committee, they can forward it to EQC.
Okay.
Okay. Further discussion on that item. The next item on our agenda were the cut scores for the PLS and on-site examinations. Chris presented the cut score of 28 of 40 for the PLS exam that was administered in March. And Ken presented the on-site cut score of 81 on the on-site exam. Memos were provided. Both of those examinations, PLS exam, there were 36 examinees. 28 of those passed for a pass rate of 78%. That pass rate did seem somewhat high, as discussed. For the on-site exam, the cut score of 81 out of 99 was recommended. One question removed due to an issue with the question itself. 21 examinees took that exam and 12 passed for a pass rate of 57%. Questions on examinations?
we'll vote on them in business.
If you would like me to, Madam Chair, now pause for questions with each item, I'll find it.
Oh, I think that's great.
The next item on our agenda was a draft attestation. It's been discussed in several prior meetings of this board. That agenda item was tabled due to the fact that it was the EQC's understanding that the structural committee had reviewed that attestation and had questions and modifications recommended to it. So we did not discuss it that way. The decoupling process, which is ongoing, was our next agenda item. That included a review of rewrite of RCW 1843. As Lagerberg explained, the recommended edits and changes to RCW 1843, which is essentially a complete rewrite. So Elizabeth prepared to draft that in support of the decoupling process. The committee was not ready to review that in full, just due to the time at which that draft was received. And unfortunately, I'll speak for myself, I was unprepared at that point, just had not reviewed it. So we will meet again before the June meeting. We have a meeting scheduled for May 23rd. EQC committee to give us time to review that rewrite and that edit, and actually kind of go through and make any changes or suggestions prior to then. The hope being send that on to the board for discussion at the June board meeting. Of note, during our discussion of decoupling, Maureen had some questions about the definition of an EIT, the process of receiving EIT certificate. So there were some changes that Maureen recommended there that we'll look to incorporate in that draft. So there were some action items here. The EQC is going to have that language ready by the June board meeting. And again, that next meeting, the EQC kind of an interim meeting is scheduled for May 23rd at 10:30 a.m. To go over those changes to 1843.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
This is a large change from both the PC committee and the EQC. I would like to make sure that the board members get the packet, get that RCW changes at least 2 weeks, if not more, before the board meeting, so that the board members also have a very clean review of these changes. This would be a huge thing to accomplish in June if we can get this.
Understood. Is there
So,
any feeling from yourself or any of the board members present that EQC meeting on May 23rd and presumably having something as far as a packet to send to the rest of the board a week or 10 days following that, is that enough time, or would you like us to
it
schedule
should
that?
be enough time, but it's up to the staff to have it on their schedule that we're gonna jump on that right after that EQC and hopefully get it in a good place.
Okay,
And final reviews by Elizabeth, right? So I mean, there's working it into everybody's schedule, so. I think that should be plenty of time. I just want to make sure people are ready to jump on it, so it doesn't come to us a couple days before the board meeting.
understood.
Great.
Anything else on that topic? Next item on our agenda, it was a full meeting. Were possible changes to the work experience verification forms. This was an agenda item that has carried over from the prior EQC meeting 2 months ago. We are, I believe, at the 99% stage of modifying that form. There were a couple last changes to that form that I think are very clear at this point. So we should have that form completely modified and good to go by the next board meeting. That's my report.
Okay,
I would like to add something. The EQC also met in March. We do need to read that report today too.
Okay.
I'm trying to pull it up for some reason. It's, yep.
It was posted on the website. I have it on my phone, do you
Okay.
like to read from that?
That might be the most expeditious means.
You guys don't have the internet, like, with the limited stuff here, right? Or you
They
got?
got
I don't know, I can't get my systems to talk.
I'm on my hotspot. I took
Yeah,
it.
my phone.
Oh my God. I might need more powerful reading on it.
Because our chair could mark this down. Good thing. I think I got it.
Mike, I have,
I think I can manage. Appreciate it.
are you sure?
I'm not sure, but I think so. So thank you, Chris. The EQC also met on March 12th. We're a very active committee. Present in that meeting, it was a virtual meeting where myself, Marie, and Matt, with support staff, Ken, Chris, Vonna, Shannon, Mackenzie, Bryce, and Elizabeth. Our discussion topic in that meeting is entirely the RCW 1843 rewrite. So we're doing a bit of a backpedal here in terms of the discussion today. The committee reviewed the changes to RCW 1843 in that meeting provided by Elizabeth and Shannon. We considered, based on the outline provided, additional changes that included removing reference to NCWS exams within 1843 and instead putting in language like as determined by the board so that the specifics could be written into rule. rather than 1843. We also looked at adding language that allows foreign applicants to apply using other examinations than the NCAAS exams. We discussed having an exception for applicants who have taken and passed the SE exam, but not the PE exam, to be issued a PE license. Washington State, as we all know from our discussion, doesn't accept the SE exam as an equivalent exam for the PE license at this stage. We discussed upcoming changes to the NCAA SPLS exam and updating the WAC to more flexibility to taking more than 2 examinations. We also discussed adding rule language that defines what type of teaching would be acceptable to count as experience for PE licensure. For example, being a full-time professor versus a part-time lecturer at a university. We discussed consideration of earned time for graduate degrees. As we know, right now there is 1 year credit granted for all graduate education. So we discussed something like having a year's credit for a master's degree and a 2nd year's credit for a doctorate degree. That, so I think most of us that are licensees in other states know is fairly common in other jurisdictions. In that case, the applicant would still be required to show at least 2 years of practical experience. We considered earned time for graduate degrees and teaching for up to 2 years to be considered by the board. Believe that's it. That's all that's here on the report itself. I guess just to come full circle, Elizabeth did include a lot of that, or most, if not all of it, in her 1843 that we received for review yesterday.
Okay,
Any questions on that? Mackenzie, can you bring me a throat lozenge?
So it sounds like a lot of the rewrite is it consistent amongst like the surveying profession, or the surveying practice and on-site? Is it pretty consistent? Are we having consistent language?
The idea is to make it all consistent, and there was some discussion of that yesterday too, to ensure that we include discussion of talking about the in-training certificates, et cetera, that we include IT, et cetera, from those perspectives as well.
Right.
But not on site. The rewrite is for the skills.
Okay, so it's not 18-35
Just 1843.
or 210, sorry.
all right. Board receives the EQC reports. Thank you. Executive committee, and that's me. Executive committee met April 16th at 12:30 p.m. here. Kennewick offices of the Benton County. Present was myself, Doug, and Dave as committee members, support staff, Ken, Christina, Mackenzie, Bryce, and online Shannon. And I believe Kevin Ballard was here, was online. And then assisting us was Ian Shelley, our senior financial consultant, Elizabeth Lagerberg, our attorney general. I can't remember if it's assistant attorney general. And Kevin Vanderweg, our Oracle's legal contractor. Mr. Shelley gave an overview of the agency's financial report. The committee discussed overage costs due to employee professional development and training, ask the agency to refocus projections of costs for employee development within the next biennium budget. Mr. Hendrickson asked if the overtime costs signify a need for additional staff. Mr. Fuller explained that overtime is due to licensing backlog. The licensing program is currently undergoing the lean method to increase efficiency and refine processes. The committee discussed a potential fund sweep, which is coming out of the legislature, which would leave the agency with a fund balance to continue operations, a revenue, let's see, 2025 to 2020. The committee discussed fund sweep, which would leave the agency with fund balance. The legislature is proposing from the House, they're suggesting a sweep of our account, our current balance of 400,000. And the Senate bill includes around a $900,000 sweep for us. It's 440 and 900. Ken has been writing letters concerning the sweep. That's not under this next section. It's a, as has Kevin Vanderweg on our behalf. And so we're waiting for the legislative session to end in order to understand how that might affect us in terms of how the legislature resolves the budget issues. Ian tells us that it's possible that that will get resolved at the end of this month, or there may be an extension to the legislative session, in which case we hope to know by the June meeting whether or not that's going to happen. It currently does not affect our operations in that we maintain a buffer to allow for any unforeseen conditions. Our projected revenue for the next biennium that's coming up in July is sufficient to cover our expected expenses. So it doesn't affect anything in terms of us having to readjust our budgets moving forward. Questions?
Yes, for my question.
So the total is 1.1 is going to be swept?
No,
Not
it
400 plus.
it's either, right now, it probably is negotiated. At some point, we're saying the 440 makes the most sense. Maximum will be the Senate's option, or it could be nothing. It is an unresolved issue, but those are what's kind of being carried.
But Ian did feel that there's a high likelihood.
No, I would say Ian's comment was that it really depends on how they resolve some of the budget issues in the general fund. And how that might affect us because we are not a general fund agency. So it is unresolved. And I don't believe that he made a comment that that could happen.
In the past, when we've had sweeps, have we heard feedback from licensees about funding?
That's a question for Shannon. I think historically, Shannon, when this last legislative sweep happened, I think was in 2015, did the registrants issue concerns?
That I recall, and the last sweep was 2017, I think.
Then
Yeah, and but I can't remember.
Okay. The budgeting for the 2025-2027 biennium revenue is projected to be 4.7 million, and expenses are between 4.4 to 4.6 million. And one of the issues that is unresolved is what we are going to be charged for central service costs. That will be established by the legislature. Mr. Vanderweg provided a legislative update. Oracle's requested two bills, 1104 and 5090. Both bills did not pass out of their chamber of origin. Those were concerning our request for additional pro tem member and allowing on-site professionals to be on the board, and some cleanup on RCW 1843. We will be able to use that initial submittal to go back in. We have our current changes or further changes for decoupling and some other cleanup of terms. And I asked Kevin whether there was any concern as to how much we change or rewrite. He said, that's fine. It's not an issue. It can still go in as an amendment to our previous bill, and that kind of helps it move through a little faster. The other bill, I believe, was the one that had to do with indexing, which was just sort of a archival kind of thing that was required for all state agencies, and it'll move forward eventually. Doesn't require any changes at this point. I inquired as to whether there had been any stakeholder meetings or movement on a bill that we were following, which was Senate Bill 5729. And Mr. Vanderweg said that he was not aware of any movement, but he'd continue to keep us informed. He also concluded by affirming that we are making progress with talking to some of our legislators and informing them on how we can help support and answer any questions that they may have that has to do with our professions, and that we want to continue to get to know some of these representatives and senators, and he has committed to helping us in that regard. Okay, review communications and correspondence. The committee reviewed a request for the board to consider a PE designation in broadband engineering. Washington State is not a discipline-specific state and is not yet ready to implement a broadband engineering PE license. The committee requested additional information from the letter writer. This was a letter that we received on whether this person has contacted the other boards or professional associations, and Ken will respond with an email informing them that NCEES offers a PE electrical and computer / electronics controls and communications exam that may be similar to what they're talking about, or that there is a process for adding exams, which then would potentially be something that would be part of a licensed PE in the future, but that they should follow the NCEES process. Questions, comments on that correspondence? All right, the committee reviewed a request, also a letter to the board, considering changing the design of the Washington State professional stamps and seals because it depicts George Washington's profile. The committee feels the change would have a large impact on licensees and the board to do any kind of revision to our stamps. And it would require a significant level of effort. The committee decided not to proceed with looking at any changes at this time, and Mr. Fuller will respond. Outreach strategic planning discussion. Greg summarized the meeting the board had in the morning of Wednesday, April 16th. That we met to discuss strategic planning for outreach. 3 goal areas were developed. Advancing the professions, public safety, and brand or reputation management. Board staff will compile information from that session and bring it back to the board for approval of board meeting. Strategic planning item discussion. Mr. Ballard, says Ms. Ballard on here, is working on, and I think I'm looking at your latest one, is working on strategic planning items that have been carrying over from some of our previous planning last year. And he will be reporting in about 4 months on some of these items, which include measuring the performance and giving stakeholder feedback, which is in progress, measuring the licensing system software functionality. And yeah, that's what he's working on. Then other strategic planning items, including staying informed on issues concerning deregulation, which is more of a national issue. Our emphasis on outreach and education, I believe that our planning session covers that. And early engagement with professional organization as we proceed into rulemaking, which will probably also be something that we discuss in June as we have the new 1843 kind of ready to go. A previous action item, staff has been working on a license review report out document regarding all 3 of the professions that the board regulates. And this is something that has been directed at other agencies, but we've decided to prepare for ourselves, mostly internally, but it's kind of following a format that has been recommended from other agencies or required of other agencies, but not required of us. Mr. Ballard is working on this item, estimated to be completed within 4 months.
Sorry, what was that again? What was the?
So there was a bill probably last year that required agencies to put together a rather thorough report of who they affect, basically, and how they do their business. Am I
It's
saying?
executive order. So
Executive orders.
it's an executive order 2503 where the new governor said for like cabinet and executive agencies that provide licensure permits, those sorts of things. Which ones do you have oversight on and issue, and what is your process, and what is the time frame? And it's about customer service and efficiency. And so we are not required, because we're not an executive agency. So we're not required to submit that to the governor. He hasn't asked for it from agencies at our level yet. We are preparing the information because we're doing a link process on licensing anyway. So it's just helpful information, and then we're prepared in case we are asked to submit it. So Kevin's been working on that as he goes through this link process with licensing.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, this is very well described. All right, action items for this meeting. Mr. Fuller will respond to the email both emails, one regarding broadband engineering, the other the design stamp changes. Board staff will compile the outreach strategic planning session information and bring it to the board meeting. As requested by the committee, the agenda item for the next meeting will include a discussion of board staff succession planning and overlap of personnel. Meeting adjourned at 1:19 p.m. Any other questions, comments about the executive committee?
I have a question, comment more on complexion and context. In discussions with Mr. Van de Wey about augmented 1843 revisions, he indicated that he didn't anticipate any difficulties with changes while they were in the cleanup context. And so some of the proposals that we have in play may not be considered by all parties as a cleanup activity. May need to be socializing that more so in that area.
So, I can answer a little bit forward. We have a couple steps that we have to do before we get to that point. One is clearing up with the governor's office because it's agency proposed legislation, going through that process as well. Similar, and then additionally, what Kevin suggested is that if there's a title change need, then we can go through the Senate bill process to do that while it's sitting in committee. And so there's a couple of options here. We need to come back. Probably have a proposed option June meeting how to deal with, because then we'll have more specific language of what to incorporate and have to evaluate where it fits within what we were talking about.
Thank you. So I just didn't want it to be an unexpected surprise that we needed perhaps more support and more socialization to clearly communicate that they requested changes from the agency.
So with respect for the legislative change, did Kevin say why it didn't come out of committee?
We didn't ask him that specifically during this meeting, but I've asked before about it. There were a lot of budget bills that were running through the House and Senate at the same time, and they were overwhelmed. And we had one of our direct sponsors who was a fairly new representative, and the attentions got diverted a bit during committee session, but that does not explain why they were diverted out in the Senate, because we had a very powerful senator, that was sponsoring the bill. Well, Kevin and I talked about it may have been a little bit of just the political caucus issues going on in the House and Senate at the same time, with this huge budget deficit going through that we're capitalizing a lot of energy. And so we believe that there weren't absolute restrictions going on. I know there was one addition that changed about U.S. citizenship requirements that the House recommended through a House request. And but we do not believe those were hindrances, that just the amount of workload, the amount of bills that we're going through, and because the little bit of politicalness of them just caused them to stall. But they were both moving forward with recommendations from the majority to approve them. So they just have stalled.
So we didn't hear any sort of negativity or questionable things within them.
Again, the only thing that was brought up was the U.S. citizenship requirement that I believe one of the representatives, Santos, brought up as an issue, and it was amended, and we agreed to that just to keep things moving, that U.S. citizenship requirement, residency of state of Washington, hired in as a professional, we're all still left on the page. So
With regard to the legislative items, mean, I know within Share, we have that, or SharePoint, we have sort of, seems like Shannon's organized this real well, but are we continuing to update that real time, or is it something that is updated once a year? I mean, I just want to be sure that we have the most up-to-date information and we don't.
Yeah, sorry, Aaron, I can't really answer that. Maybe Shannon can. So if she's on the line.
Aaron, you will. Right now, it's kind of jointed because of the two committees that are working on it, but once for June meeting, you will have the changes that went through last session and the changes that we want to put in for this session will all be on one document.
Okay, so we don't, again, I just don't want
It's being
us to pick
updated
up the ball
regularly.
and we're talking about the same things that we've already talked about in the past with this document that's going to go in, right? That
It'll be updated. I'll keep the most current version out there and send it to the board. It's
that you-
completed.
Anything else? All right, executive committee report out is received, and we are on to 4.3, practice committee. Doug?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Practice committee met here in this room yesterday with myself, Mr. Blaisdell, and Mr. Beaton, present as committee members, and a slate of support staff, including Mr. Fuller, support Gillespie, Ms. Short, Mr. Garcia, Ms. Kramer, Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Ballard, that's Mr. Gomez, and Greg Schieferstein.
And McKenzie.
And I think that's mostly all. We went through complaint summary and a short summarized the 13 complaints currently reviewed. There's some discussion on a couple of them, and that I inquired if there was support from staff to respond in a timely manner. This number. And Ms. Short reminded the board she's still helping with cases as Mr. Garcia takes over the investigations. So we're doing a RAM staff, but we have Ms. Short still on. Overall, with the explanation provided by Mr. Fuller, they're simplifying the complaint process in going through that right now, the lead process. They'll complete in about 4 months. In administrative closure reports, Short covered 7 cases in the closure report. One committee members asked about details related to administrative closures, how they're reviewed, and noting the closure did not mention who reviewed administrative closed cases. And in discussion, those be amended to clarify. Mr. Peyton asked if I didn't mind someone having fun with it. That's it. I find we have a very nice, we got Wi-Fi connections. Mr. Beaton asked if we could add the review in the administrative, so that was acceded. That in compliance reports and non-compliance reports, we received a report from Ms. Short. It's in the packet. Everything, all the compliance aspects are continuing online. We have one that's nearing completion and will come off compliance reporting. In changes to 1843 language, Mr. Gillespie presented the updates that we're considering for 1843, and that those are also in the background context with the file changes with 1843 with EQC. We had an extended discussion with Gas regarding the term engineer as a professional engineer laws. And the expansion of the term professional engineer, we didn't need to change all the mentions of engineer. We ended up with completing that discussion, proceeding on the current path as drafted. And council agreed at that point and gave an example of different boards who did this. With regard to WAC 196.25 business practices, Ms. Gillespie covered the changes to 196.25 that are under proposal, and asked if we were going to move the updates to the board, and we asked that we move forward to the board, and we should have action items to the board meeting here for a CR 101 authorization to advance 196.25 changes.
And that will be a new business.
Is in yes. That completes that.
Comments or questions for Doug on the PC report out? Yes, received, thank you. Committee, Dave?
Thank you. Structural committee met at 11 a.m. on April 11th via Teams with the location in person in Olympia. The 3 committee members were present, myself, Marjorie, and Chad. Support staff included Christina, Vonna, Shannon, Bryce, and Elizabeth. There were a few discussion topics. The first was the draft attestation. The committee discussed the usage and language of an attestation to be used on forms. There was no action on this item from the committee. The topic will be discussed further in new business today. SE application updates. The committee is continuing to review edits to the structural engineering registration and experience and verification forms. There's some general language cleanup to the forms. Update the language on the registration and experience verification forms stating a minimum of 2 different verifiers are required. We discussed the exam pass rates. The committee reviewed the total number of SE applications received between January 1st of this year to March 31st of this year. SE applications received since January 1, been 14 comedy, 2 initial, 9 exam. SE applications licensed since January 1st, 13 comedy, 1 initial, and 1 exam. Action items from the meeting. Add a link on the SC registration form to the board's FAQ page for questions about NCAAS exams. And decide on language for the experience record summary on the SC registration application. That was it. Short and sweet.
Any questions for Dave on the structural committee report?
So I do have one. Dave, you said that there was going to be a link on, you said that on the application?
Yeah, we're into our, I believe it's the 4th exam. So if you're old enough, you took the Western States exam. There was structural 3, there was the 2-day NCAAS, now there's the 4-day. So we thought, instead of trying to spell all that out and do it incorrectly on the form, let's just refer applicants to the website where it is in one place now.
Okay. So it's when they apply for
Yeah, they'll have to go to the webpage to see, okay, do I have the right exam?
Or
Okay.
comedy. If they've got comedy, they can look there and say, oh, okay, I passed the Western States.
Okay,
Then accept.
okay. Interesting that we don't have that on others. Or just have that like on our website or something like that, or do we? Like a general process or general,
We have a webpage that talks about the PE exams, which includes a little bit of language about the SE.
right?
But I don't see it being the right place for that type of information.
It's too deep. This is too deep.
I don't think anybody would go there specifically to see if their exams would match up. So I'm not sure the logic, because I wasn't at that meeting, but the FAQ might be the right spot for that information.
It was just getting rather convoluted.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
the applications tend to be ongoing, you know, if this causes a lot of problems for staff, correct it.
Thought it has areas.
Ah, okay, can't see it. Fauna?
She did.
Okay. Well, she'll raise it again if she wants us. Can you repeat the last item? I was still working that over in my head. The,
The last action item?
I don't know, and the last thing you read. I lost track of it already.
Which was deciding on language for the experience record summary on the SC registration application.
Deciding on language for the experience record okay, so still.
There were a
just
couple of
reviewing
changes.
the application.
There were a couple of tweaks there to that
It's just a general,
experience record.
yeah, got it. Okay, anything else?
And well, kudos to Bryce for already getting some of those edits back to the community.
Yeah,
Thank you.
all right, survey committee, Aaron?
survey committee, met on the 14th of April, via Teams. I was absent, from that meeting, but I will read the discussion topics. We had a correspondence, that came in, regarding the question about the, qualifications of employees working under the direct supervision of a licensee. And it sounds like the response was provided to this person. They then asked another question in which the committee then felt it is appropriate to respond with a letter from the committee that the committee actually forwarded to the correspondence and discussed it. There was out of that that discussion topic being that Matt prepare the response from the committee that basically affirms Chris being the deputy director's initial response. Also, what was discussed is WAC 19616 proposed changes, and considering updating PDH hours for reinstated PLS licenses. So I think that resulted in an action item that staff worked with the AAG on PDH audits to develop a proposal for changes to WAC 19616.035. Two other items that were on the agenda were not discussed. So they were tabled until the June meeting or June timeframe in which the survey committee will meet. The committee also had a report from Mr. Ballard on the proposed plan for using computer-based testing, presented a timeline for computer-based testing platform being developed. Mr. Hendrickson asked about the impact on staff, what timelines is to present the CBT proposal to the board. So that was discussed. Again, we had a couple action items that came out of the committee's work. One was, again, that to provide or prepare a response, which I believe that you have. Has been done. To respond to the correspondence, and then also working with AEG, Ms. Lagerberg on the PDH audit 196-16-035, and bringing that back through for the committee to review and hopefully recommend to the board. So those were all the items to discuss, or that was discussed. And that was my report.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions for the survey report?
I would supplement the development and studies that are being undertaken, CBT implementation. Well-founded and requested staff that move forward to advancement and hopefully have a more complete activity.
Excellent. That's great. Kevin hit the ground running.
Sprinting.
Sprinting.
Yes. Yes.
Making great progress. We really appreciate it. It's good. Okay, that's all of the committee reports. Shall we steam ahead for the next half hour? I assume lunch will be around noon.
It's on
Okay.
the way right now.
All right, well, let's just steam ahead then. Going into new business, 5.1 NCEES. The first item is a Western Zone update. Aaron, if you care to.
Sure, Madam Chair. So the Western Zone first is going to be meeting next in May in Albuquerque, and I believe that everyone, I think within the board and staff all have their arrangements to that.
I'm not going.
You're not going.
I'll be on my road trip.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's going to be a very detailed and aggressive schedule. So I just want to forewarn those in the room. We have a lot of discussion regarding engineers, and that will be within the engineers forum. We also have a lot of discussions within the survey forum, namely the survey and mapping sciences task force. I was able to glean a little bit of discussion last week when I was in Boston at the Northeast Zone meeting. And it sounds like we're all talking about the same information, same topics. So those will also be discussed within the meeting. So to lay it out, the Western Zone right now has the ability, because we're last in the cycle of zone meetings. Northeast Zone was last week, Southern Zone is next week, and then we are in May. No. So some of the topics that come before the group through committee reports will be very polished and ready to go for discussion at our zone. Again, some of the items that are on the agenda will be affecting engineers. There's nothing I see within, as Western Zone VP, that is sort of like, we'll have a lot of dead air and not much discussion. There's nothing I see. We are going to have a pretty aggressive schedule. We also will have elections of the secretary for the Western Zone. Dave is a nominee, which is great to have somebody within our own board be a nominee to the secretary position for Western Zone.
I'd like to ask for your vote.
I think we actually are.
I've seen that.
Don't change your mind. There is another nominee,
There is another nominee.
Perry
Yeah.
from Mexico.
Yeah, the NBA from New Mexico is also a nominee.
Okay,
As far as that, right now, hopefully, and I want to ask all the board members whether or not they filled out their committee preference survey questionnaire that they received. Did everybody receive a committee preference questionnaire from NCWS?
I am sure we did.
I asked only because there's a large population that has not filled theirs out because they did not know. So if you go to, as a reminder, go to your NCWS, NCWS, all board members have the connection, go down to E3, click on that. Once you are within the portal, click on your name up in the upper right-hand corner, and that goes to a committee preference survey. Fill that out if you want to be on a committee. I strongly encourage you because we have a very unique situation to where our president-elect coming up is also within the Western Zone, and she is certainly encouraging participation from those that are within the zone to be on committees. So with that, that's kind of the zone update.
Good.
Question about our current committee members. How do your terms work? Like Marjorie, will you be on most?
It's
Your
annual, and
So you have to
the
be
president-elect selects from the people that volunteer through this.
Usually with recommendations from the chair.
And people that I've known on the committee have said that typically they kind of get re-upped, but after 3 years, they're asked to move around.
Okay, so
Yeah.
to be a little strategic, you're continuing.
I am not going to continue.
You're not going to continue.
Next year. I've done 2 years on the EPE.
Okay. Doug, you've been on one too.
Different ones. I'm on the EPP this year.
Okay. But you don't
That was the
know-
First year.
Okay.
I applied for the audit committee again.
Yeah, so there is a process, and Marjorie said it perfectly, that the president-elect has the ability to place anyone on any committee. Okay, in this case, and other cases, the president-elect looks to the committee preference questionnaire that everyone fills out, hopefully, and you basically rank your 1, 2, and 3, what you want to be involved with and why you should be involved. Those are taken into account and where you get placed. There are requirements and policies in which representation from various zones, right? Representation also includes whether or not you've already been on the committee, and policies require that only a certain amount of turnover occurs. So
Yeah.
on EPS, 50% of current members have to stay just for a transition method. So there's strings attached there. But it all starts with the committee preference questionnaire. Also, the president-elect appoints a chair, and from that chair position, more people can be added or subtracted based on the chair's recommendation. Also, staff, NCWS staff also have the ability to weigh in on individuals who may have been involved in a committee that may not be a good fit for that person. They may be more in tune with this other committee. So staff has also the ability to recommend in the committee. So hopefully that added to your.
Okay. Item 5.1.2, let's start with discussing the voting instructions. One person will be responsible for voting on issues, of course, in collaboration with the board members that are at the meeting. But we need to appoint somebody who is the voter. I think we push buttons like we do at the end, but
I move that chair, present, represent the board in votes to her conscience with discussions that in the manner we've had in this.
have a motion
A second.
and a second. Any discussion?
Well, just so everybody knows, I'm abstaining from votes
Right.
as a presider over the meetings.
Is there anything besides secretary that we're voting on as a zone?
There could be items from the floor, things that happen. There's still time to get discussion topics into the zone, so.
When do motions have to go get published to the Western Zone?
Like,
I do not know the answer to that other than earlier, right? So they can be published in on the, on the screen.
Okay. We have a motion and a second that the current chair be the official voting member at the zone meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Also under this item, I am asking the board for consideration of presenting to the board an issue concerning the structural engineering exam and a recommendation to the president-elect specifically and others for task force for discussion of the issues with the structural exam. And that is an issue that other zones will be considering. So I'd like to ask if the board is willing to move forward with Washington presenting this at the engineers business meeting.
I moved it. He was our chair, moved that forward at the engineers forum.
We have a motion and a second for Washington board chair to move that issue forward during the engineers forum at the Western Zone meeting. Any questions, discussion?
Are you, is that going to be moved forward as a verbal from the floor? Or is it going to be something drafted to be?
I suspect there will be something drafted by that time.
Okay.
but the engineers forum in context, not present any voting actions. There are no actions that will come out for this information.
Out of the business forum?
Yeah.
And then does that go to the zone, the Western Zone business meeting?
They will.
So, yeah,
Does that happen after the forums?
There are multiple sessions.
yeah, so,
Okay. I don't need to know the specifics.
Yeah, there's a business session
But
after
there
the
is
forum.
potential
Okay.
that goes then to the business section.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. We have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented by Doug, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving right along. 2025 annual meeting funded delegate selection. Mackenzie, are you presenting this or do you want to talk?
Yeah, the packet is really just a summary of events, for funded delegates. We have a long list of people who are already anticipated to come, right? So we've got Ken as the NBA, who would be funded, Dave and Aaron would be funded. We have quite a few first timers for the annual meeting, so that would be Mike as a first timer, since he did not attend in August. Matt, this would be your first time going on our board to the annual meeting.
What was this for?
This is for August. the annual.
August in New Orleans.
Yes, and then Maureen, it would be your first time attending with our board as well. So we have 3 first timers that we would send. Law enforcement is also funded, so we would send Randy Garcia. And then that leaves Marjorie and Doug as 2 funded and CES funded delegates if you choose to go.
I'm pretty sure my wife wants to go there.
Will you accompany her or shall we just take Michelle?
It's pretty good, the whole board.
Well,
Yeah,
I looked at the schedule because the meetings start on Tuesday. So it's really, like travel the weekend before Monday.
Yeah.
So it's the whole week count.
Well, Tuesday's only.
Well, no, the plenary meeting and because if you're a CES supported one, you have to be there for the plenary as well as all business sessions.
all right, so please put Doug and myself down as funded.
I am not planning to go.
So for, I guess,
Need to report everybody, first timers and or,
Yeah, if CES, excuse me, has changed their process, I can no longer submit this for our board. It has to go through the NBA. So I'll get this information and Ken will submit it.
okay, Chris, are you,
I'm not,
you're not attending?
not this year.
Okay,
I will
Yes.
let you know.
Okay.
I forgot to get my enhanced driver's license. I have to get that done. Otherwise I can't fly anywhere. Well,
Finish that up again.
Panicking.
it takes.
You can also use a passport card or your passport.
I don't have a passport.
Um,
Last time I left the country, you could literally walk into the airport, put your credit card in and buy a temporary passport.
Yeah.
I did get a passport replacement in 3 weeks. I just got it back last week.
So I'm gonna schedule an appointment for when I get back from my vacation. So,
okay. That, you've got what you need? Okay,
so I was, for what it's worth, I was gonna say that, we do have annual meeting, the first in August. The next year, next May, might be April, is an combined all zone meeting.
another all zone zone.
That's our name.
Right, so
Okay.
so we'll be going, we're combined zone in this May. We have Oregon will be hosting the next zone meeting, and then then we'll have a all combined zone. A full, and then we'll have an annual meeting after that. So
So where's the next combined?
So you're saying there's a zone meeting and an all zone meeting?
they'll have a all zone meeting.
But not a separate zone meeting.
Correct, during that year, right? And then an annual meeting. So, and the reason I got it is for the first timers, that if we're using all of the first timers now, having those at other meetings, using them up, if we have the ability to do a funded delegate now and then use the first timers at a later date,
Does that count?
that's a strategy. I don't know, I'm just saying that.
I'm curious about that. I mean, we could,
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can skip and you reserve your beyond, but yeah, but I don't think, yeah. It may not.
Yeah, you're not a first timer, you're gone.
yeah.
All right, so let's move on. 5.2 PLS and onsite state exam cut scores. Do we have anything to post?
I do. We have the memos
Okay,
that we reviewed. So first up is the on-site memo.
okay. So starting with the onsite, this was part of Mike's report out from the EQC. I would entertain a motion about the cut score.
No, I'm sorry, which exam again?
So this is
It's the
on
onsite.
site, and we would be discussing a cut score of 81 out of 99.
We had one question that we discarded. Thank you, Doug. Yes.
For what reason?
So we have this discussion?
Let's have a motion,
I'm
and we're gonna,
that we accept Q's recommendation for the cut score. 81.
I'll second the motion.
okay, I have a motion and a second. The cut score of 81. Any discussion?
There was a misprint on one number and it led to it being ambiguous of what the answer was, so.
And that's based on feedback from the.
Right, we had a comment that came in, there were several comments, I think 11. I think the subject matter experts reviewing all of them. They believed that it just was a misprint.
Has that been rectified for the future?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Just one that didn't occur to me yesterday, frankly, when we went over this. That question that we threw out, was there, was it not?
It's a different exam.
Okay. So that question was not there.
Yeah, we actually went through questions with the onsite in this last fall, later in like mid-fall, and there were a few new questions. I think so. I remember if this was one of those new questions or not, but
But we're sure it was not.
it was not on the September. Bobby can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, so what was the question?
The question that we threw out on the on-site exam was not on the September exam.
No, it was not.
Yep. Okay.
Any other questions? Oh,
Just based on the September to March, you have a swing of significance.
It could just be the people taking the test. I mean,
Well, the September 23 and the September 24 were the same exam. That's that's where you see the difference. It's people that it's the same form.
Right, so do we have any idea of,
Chris was answering that.
Well, if you look back in September 22, it was 38% pass.
right,
I
Yeah,
think it's such a small group of test takers that it may be more reflective of who's there and not crazy.
I mean, I expect that it is at maybe a 10% swing, but
We asked a question about the September exam before, and I think we were all surprised, frankly. Thinking in retrospect, it's in a lot of respects agree with Marjorie that suspect that if you had a statistician look at population that's actually taken the exam, it's so small that you can't draw any statistical inference.
Difference of one or two people not passing. Significant.
Yeah,
and it is designers and inspectors that are taking the same thing.
okay.
And we were finding that the inspectors, the population of inspectors tended to be county or health department staff who were ill-prepared.
So that was the September one we reviewed and approved. So we're now looking at the March 2025 exam. So we have a motion on our table to approve that cut score. Any further comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So let's move on to the PLS exam. I move that we accept the recommendation to 8 out of 40 as the cut score. Have a second?
I will second.
Doug seconds it. We have a motion and a second to approve 28 out of 40 as the cut score for the March 2025 PLS exam. Is there any questions or discussion?
yeah, I mean,
It's a brand new exam.
okay,
High pass rate.
very high pass rate. I think that's the largest pass rate that I've seen since my tenure.
Surveyors are getting better.
Well, the thing is, we
Let's go
don't,
with that.
this is the first one. We don't know how it's going to perform next time or, this has gone through. I'm not going to make any assumptions about the exam yet, just personally. It's gone through exam writers, it's gone through the exam validation group, the psychometrician put the exam questions together. Until we have another group take the exam, if they do the same, maybe we need to adjust some of the questions, making sure we don't make it too easy if we're too hard.
If I may, EQC yesterday, we did discuss this, and it was us that we've had, and I'm sure you're aware of this, we've had 2 survey exams that we alternated previously, like on site. Now we have 4, so this is one of the 2 new ones. Because we only had 2 before, it was pretty easy to pick out that we were alternating, but because we have 4, EQC has asked that in the future on this memo, in addition to the 3 columns presented, that there's another column that identifies which examination it was, A, B, C, or D. So that we can start to look at if this is exam C, is exam C just
Too easier.
yeah.
I wouldn't go that far as to report that in this, but certainly within the EQ's
We try to do it.
kind of process to know which that, because yeah, I'd like and put a pin in this and track that, and see if,
Different exams perform differently.
right.
Yeah, this was like, whoa,
Yeah,
yeah, we're gonna track it for sure.
and especially coming into the March exam, Obviously, spring versus fall conference, refresher courses at certain times of the year within the survey profession,
Yeah.
survey organization. We've really wanted to partner with LCW specifically to ensure that we promote, if numbers are decreasing, that we keep them apprised of that in case they do see an opportunity to help us educate
So
the profession.
the surprising thing is in the comments, we ask, the comment sheet, we say, can you please assign a number to this exam for difficulty between 1 and 10, 10 being the hardest, and the average was 7.5.
25%.
And that's
So they
the
said-
test takers.
And that's the test taker saying this was a difficult test. So that's like, oh, that's interesting information. Yeah.
Okay, I have a motion on the table to accept the pass rate on the PLS March 2025 exam of 28 out of 40. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're going to stop soon, but item 5.3, changes to the work experience verification form from EQC. Is that something we're pushing to June? Or are we prepared to present something finalized of your 99% there?
We reduced that to 90, based on discussion yesterday, Marjorie.
That's what I'm asking.
I think we probably, in June, quite frankly, the remaining issue was just some clarification on the experience form about, there's words about, the verifier's time supervising the applicant and, the committee, and thanks to Maureen, really specifically believes that those items ought to be, clarified to read, your time spent supervising the applicant's work. Because a lot of us have administrative supervisors in our companies, but also other people that might supervise our work. So there is ambiguity there.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to push that item, the agenda for the June meeting. I'd also like to ask staff to, as this is cleaned up, we would like, the structural committee would like the structural application to follow very closely to the PE application. And so if we can make those changes proposed to the SE committee, that would be great. All right, so we're going to take a break now. We're gathering our lunch. I think that we are actually doing pretty well through the new business. And then some reporting. So I'm going to suggest we take a 20-minute lunch break. If you're still chomping when we come back, that's okay, but let's reconvene for all of those of you online. We'll reconvene at 12:20. It is April 17th, 2025, special board meeting, Board of Registration for Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors. And we are going to continue with new business. Starting with item 5.4, draft attestation. This is an issue that's kind of been discussed for 4 to 6 months. We haven't really gotten far with it, but it's the issue of whether we need to be more specific to applicants as to their requirement to be familiar with state and local jurisdiction codes and amendments. And whether that is something that needs to go in an application, law review, or not at all. And it was kind of started with the structural committee, because I think I'm the first one that sort of said, hey, is this something that's important? Certainly the structural thinks of it because of seismic issues that pertain to Washington, but there are many other regulations and building code type requirements specific to Washington State. So now this is the latest verbiage that was reviewed by the SE committee, and I'm going to turn it over to Dave to just report on what we discussed.
All right, I'm gonna lob it over to Mike.
Play tennis with us one.
Okay, so actually, this is not the language. There was alternate language on the application, I believe, that was different than this.
I'm sorry, I told Bryce to bring up this one.
While you're looking for that, the committee discussed it, and we actually do not have a recommendation on whether we should include the attestation or not. We thought it should be a board discussion. We have some sample language that we'll bring up soon if the board chooses that we should include it. We have some sample language. Again, the committee did not necessarily agree that we should include it, but we did discuss the language. And
So my recollection is Elizabeth said, look, you know, there's all these laws that say you have to be knowledgeable within your field and work with the laws of Washington, and building code is actually and it's legally, it's a legal.
Accepted.
Accepted. Thank you. And so by getting licensed and following your ethics to work within your field, that is part of it. I think that my initial bringing this up was a desire to remind people before they start working their responsibilities are. And that, you know, that's the mother in me, I think, saying, you know, let's just kind of put it out there that people should.
the version you sent.
Yeah, it seems like it's sort of a reminder, right? Because if all we're thinking about is aspects.
So,
But that's really my purview. That attestation can be as simple as I attest I will follow.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, since you referred to me, that my advice wasn't necessarily aimed at the attestation itself. It was aimed at all the yes/no questions that are in there that, to me, should also, if you're going to include them, should also be attestations instead of yes, yes, no. Because if anybody says no, then why would you even accept their application? So mine was more based on those yes/no questions as far as using attestations. And I would not use those or turn them into an attestation.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. It's the yellow language there.
Okay, so yeah, to be clear, the committee is not recommending an attestation. We were not We did not arrive at a conclusion. So we are requesting that the board provide direction on if something like the outline here on the screen is something that the board wants to see on the SE and PE application.
It's not there already.
It
Correct.
is not there already. This was part of a markup that we worked on. And
So can you, whoever's got control, can you go down to the signature page?
You're there.
Okay. Is it something at which you're signing, by signing this, you're basically saying the same thing? You have to have,
This is a declaration that just says, it's kind of like, it's the alternative to a notary, where you're just declaring under penalty of perjury that everything you wrote there is true and correct. So all of the yes, no questions are true and correct, and all of the information you provided. It's limited to that.
I mean, I know on the survey application, we've gone through this as well, back and forth over the years, whether you've read 5809, whether you've read Act 332, 130. I don't know, is this different than what we would have on, or we would accept on other applications?
it is the same thought process. When you have that on the surveying one, it's as much to remind them that that's there as it is to make them sign blood. Doug?
I would say, one, there's a difference between what was splashed up there earlier. One said all codes and had a future promise, okay, basically, and listen, you know, you will always do this. But that's not what you're currently working necessarily, but we do have the explicit code in 196.27A 22D. It says registered shall be competent in the technology and knowledgeable of the codes and regulations applicable to the services they perform. If you're going to have something like this, I would just have it as a, you know, you got this under declared penalty of perjury. This is a statement that says, please note, you know, this code says you this. And I would probably, you know, have that there because it's absolutely nothing wrong just citing that piece of language from our code that says you will be knowledgeable of the codes and standards and regulations.
So you say that the WAC again was 196.
196.27A02D. That
So-
actually wraps up some of the BDH discussion we had.
Are you saying that refer to that specific or refer to the wax instead of this
Telling them the
worded?
promise, tell them they're committed to it. It's their responsibility.
So you're directing them, or are you actually asking them to attest that
No,
they're?
I wouldn't ask them to attest. I would tell them they have this responsibility.
Okay, this is an application, so I'm not sure that that's the place for this, but I mean, there's no reason you can't do it.
I mean, they have other responsibilities too. Where do you draw the line of reminding them what the responsibilities are on the application?
Okay, so where do you draw the line on what's their professional responsibility? How many things do you?
I'm personally not advocating for an attestation.
Maureen, you were gonna say something?
I was gonna say, it's still be on the application as professional responsibility, and then could just state per whack, blah, 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 you know, and repeat the language there.
I understand. That's just a reminder as you prepare and sign the certification.
If that was the impetus around adding the attestation was just to be another reminder to people that Washington State has its own codes and standards, no matter what discipline you're in, and you need to make sure that you're aware of them. Because, you know, calling out the building code and bridge design manual is extremely specific, and, you know, maybe we don't want to be that specific.
Or maybe we do. If there's,
See, on the other hand, having this as an attestation is another pile-on complaint. You know, you find that they didn't do it right to code, but they attested to it, so therefore that's a second violation, right? It's a pile-on.
well, generally in the survey, one, not on the application, it's
Yeah.
those items. would be the- So on the renewals, is this language a better fit? I don't know. I mean, if you're making application, you better know the laws and it's sort of clear that way, but the renewal, we have found in the survey side, the renewal is the time that, okay, just as a reminder, you know,
Well, if you recall, when we first started talking about this, it was really about people who are from a different country. Fine.
That's kind of what started. Do they know that we have codes and standards that are specific not only to our state, but sometimes to counties and cities? And I'm reminded that really before I was on this board, I had no clue what laws applied to our profession. So I'm sitting here thinking, you know, is there a place? I mean, now I know it's on our website. But before that, really, we never really defined, here's all of the state laws and rules that apply, you know, to your discipline or to your business, of which Doug found the one line that looks like this, which is great. I mean, so do we need to do that? You know, or is it understood well enough when somebody's saying, hey, I want to be an engineer in Washington, that they, you know, learn, don't look at those things, especially when they have to take our law review. So my goal here today is to resolve this issue so that it doesn't keep flipping back onto the two committees that have volleyed this.
And we're enjoying our game of ping pong.
Well, okay. All for ping pong.
Pickleball, Washington.
But perhaps it's time for it to, you know, just fade away as an issue.
I mean, these sorts of things do exist in other jurisdictions. You know, I've noted them before by recollection. The ones that I've been exposed to have been more along the lines of, I have reviewed and am familiar with, in our case, the RCWs and WACs that regulate my profession, and it might spell out what those are. To your point of directing them to, here's where you can find this stuff. So maybe it could be that broad, if it doesn't maybe necessarily serve the purpose of your initial impetus for a reminder about building codes and things like that. But it might at least remind somebody and actually give them some information about where they can find the codes and rules that move these professions.
But
Right.
don't they get that information before they sit for the law
I don't know.
exam?
Do they get what information?
What rule, what laws?
That's hyper.
At the question, there's the referenced RCW was back for that question.
Okay,
So
but
They
we
see
don't,
it.
there's no, here, study this first, then sit for this law.
no,
So they're studying as they taking each of the items.
obviously they have,
'Cause I know we've added
they
that,
have looked at it prior, but
but to
But at
know
least-
where to look. It's on our website now, but
In the test.
well, in
I
our,
realize it's in the test, but that's, somebody's wanting to get in and get out. And you're actually in the test.
They don't
You're
have
not sitting.
particularly tight time.
No, they don't, but you don't just sit and read the whole thing and then say, oh yeah, there's codes, I better, about codes.
if they're studying for the exam, that they would be looking at, you know, the laws and rules, and of course, we have a list of them on our website and
Yeah,
I mean, I get the idea. I can understand many people that maybe don't understand that building codes are laws. I know that. I guess a little more into the details, but when you say the bridge design manual, which one are you referring to? There's three. There's the Washington State Bridge Design Manual, which WashDOT uses. There's the FHWA Bridge Design Manual, which
right.
everybody else uses, and then there's the AASHTO or LFRD. LRFD Bridge Design Manual. So just saying the Bridge Design Manual is not sufficient.
There's if I were designing railroad bridges.
Right, and then you get into pedestrian
Yeah.
bridges and everything else, and none of them, because those are all for roadways.
Oh.
And so I think getting that specific in that case is going to cause us problems, because
Yeah,
there's too many reference documents out there that are called that.
And there's likely not a place in an RCW or WAC that tells you you must comply with all these codes.
Right.
You know, it's gonna be different depending on which jurisdiction you're in within Washington State, right? So we don't want to get to a point where we're trying to tell people you must comply with these codes. We're trying to be more generic to say.
You need to be aware that these
Acknowledge
codes
it.
exist. So, 'cause yeah, every county and city has their own modifications to the state building code. So,
Is there a accepted building code in Washington?
yes. And there is an RCW that says the Washington State Building Code is
2000,
2022 International Building Code with Washington State.
However, there are jurisdictions that have their own code, like Seattle.
they have,
Seattle built
have to adopt the state,
And then modify it.
can't make it less restrictive.
Right.
So we go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it could be, yeah, something like Seattle, their applications are extensive. Us, we're very, very few.
so if we roll this up into this is what is seen on all applications, no matter if you're applying as a surveyor, I'll say designer, PE, what have you, that you're knowledgeable in current Washington state laws and rules. Is that enough?
Could maybe even say, if you wanted to get a little, you could say add local codes.
Yeah, we say local jurisdiction jurisdictional requirements. I maybe am more in favor of just a one line somewhere above the signature that is just, WAC 196-27A 020, and then the statement. And then somebody's signing at the bottom. So
Yeah, and that.
less nagging,
All of them.
just, having a statement that says you're responsible for being responsible.
Because we're only talking about the FD application, right?
No,
Oh, this isn't.
The EQC has asked the SE to decide what they're thinking, and the EQC will consider it for their applications, but it feels to me that something a little more generic, if anything at all, which is kind of where I'm, sort
feel
of.
a lot coming on. Yeah, we don't have a motion. Maybe I can get a second to a motion that we do not include any attestation statement.
Okay, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do not include any attestation.
I'll second.
Doug has seconded it. Further discussion?
It seems like it's applicating the application, our applicants are obligated to this anyway. And plus many other things, where do we stop listing what their responsibilities are?
That if you miss one, if they,
Right.
they're gonna say, we didn't tell you, I didn't know that one.
Yeah, yeah. So I just don't think it's necessary. It's confusing and it could, yeah. So.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Is there further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. The attestation question
Please.
been voted on and is gone.
Agenda.
I feel like you guys need to have some sort of closure discussion with this at the
Yeah.
committee
Almost
meeting.
here. Yeah. I think this is great, closure. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Yeah. All right. This one's a little more straightforward. Item 5.5, approval of the CR 101 for WAC 196-25. Doug, or do you want Shannon to?
Shannon, will you please present the CR 101 draft and discussion of 19625 revision?
Okay, I asked the purchase committee to request that the board approve a filing of a CR 101 to include language that we repealed out of WAC 196-26A. And we want to add it into the appropriate sections of the application and the renewal for COAs in 196-25.
So adopt within 25 language that is referenced.
So this is just adjusting the WAC. It's not new requirements.
No, it's language that was in the old language we repealed. It's just one sentence, like, I think they both say you have to be current with the Department of Revenue. That's what it says in our law, and it was never put in 196-25 because it was already in the renewal section that we repealed.
All right, can I have a motion?
I will advance a CR 101 for these text changes.
Sorry.
It's been moved and seconded to advance the CR 101 for WAC 196-25 as described by Shannon. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Yep.
All right. Item 6 point, director's report.
I know it's in
Hold on.
this, but I'd like to make sure the newer members are familiar with the CR process. You may not be entirely familiar or comfortable with them. The CR 101 is the first step, says we're considering change to. CR 102 says this is a change we're considering. And then after public input and stakeholder involvement and those changes, comments, and everything else, a CR 103 says this is what will be affected and when. So at this point, that action was just say, put up the flag, says we're going to change this. Expect to change this.
Good, thanks. Director's report, financial report. Do we have Ian with us?
We do.
Hi, Ian.
Hello, good afternoon. All right, the financial report, these are financials through the fiscal month of February. And I'll keep it high level, but as you can see in the packet here, in February, revenues and expenses were both just about 190,000, so they were keeping even in February. That's a good sign. Biennium to date, so July 2023 through February 2025, we had revenues of 3.514 million. We had expenses of 3.13 million. So the revenues are about 200,000 or so higher than expenses to date. You can see also that reflects in our fund balance, beginning fund balance of 1.54 million. It's grown by that 200,000 to about 1.747 million through February. Next section, projecting through the end of this biennium, projecting through this June 2025. We're projecting final revenues for the biennium about 4.278 million. Final expenses for the biennium, 4.157 million. So again, revenues exceeding 150,000 or so across the 2 years, giving us a small increase in fund balance. And then thinking beyond this biennium, thinking into biennium 27, that'll be a couple sections down in the report. The final section, biennium 25, 27 considerations. Essentially what that's projecting right now is revenues for the next 2-year period coming close to, I would say closer to that 4.7 million number, and expenses right now somewhere between 4.4 to 4.6 million. So that's where you'll see that 4.5 million showing up. So again, the next 2-year period, revenues are showing a little higher than the expenses, but nothing, not extremely higher. That's our high level picture of where we're at and kind of the next 2-year period. If the board would like, we also have the topic of the current legislative session. I can speak to some of those items if you like.
Yeah, if you would just speak to the potential fund balance. We had some questions earlier when I made the executive committee presentation, so be great if you went over that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the legislature is currently in session. The session is scheduled to end on Sunday, April 27th. So we're keeping our eye out for what the final approved budget package looks like. On the table right now, the House and the Senate have proposed different budget versions, and they do include some fund balance sweeps. So we have that 1.7 million in our fund right now, and the legislature is looking at sweeping some of that into the general fund. One proposal has that amount at 440,000, and another proposal has that at a $900,000 amount. So we're keeping our eye on that, and we won't know for sure a final figure until the legislature comes to a compromise budget, which we're hoping is in the next week if the legislature can get out on time. I know Ken has had some conversations and heard developments, and we're hoping for that lower end number, closer to that 440 sweep. Anything higher than that, we're not in favor of. We're hoping it's as low a sweep as possible.
Anybody have questions? Yes,
Do
Matt?
we have a target for our fund balance? Say we need to have, 25% of operating expenses or anything like that.
Yeah, we do. We do keep tabs on a target range. Right now, our target range is something about, we've been pegging it at like 1.2 million, which we're a little higher than. But that number continues to be examined. 3 to 6 months of operating expenses is typical as a minimum, but then there's a number of unique factors to the board that we like to take into consideration, whether it is any specific risks to the board that could incur excess expenses, or whether it's large investments that the board might want to make into technology or its processes or its offerings. So those factors are being considered as we're looking for our target fund balance.
Then, so let's hypothetically say there's a sweep of some amount. It takes our fund balance down. Does that impact our ability to do anything like we've talked about, computer-based testing and those kind of things? Or is it just kind of pushing us back to below what our ideal fund balance would like to be?
Well, it could. And $900,000 is
a lot.
Could take a pretty big chunk out of the ability to move along with some of the potential initiatives in the future. Specifically, if we were looking at it into expense software, if we were to go into a licensing system on our own, we'd have to go borrow money to do it. And even with our current fund balance, we'd have to go in and increase fees to get able to fund that. Ian and I have been talking about ways that we could maybe protect some of our budget in the future and things like that. But if the 440 is what we're recommending as a maximum, and 0, of course, Doug asked me to fight hard, and so Ian and I have been fighting hard with each other a little bit. But we could survive, that cuts us into, 1.3 million. If we're supposed to keep 6 months at $200,000 a month, that's 1.2 million right there. And so that's our minimum. We're at our minimum pretty quickly.
We had a conversation, or at least a question was asked about, whether the membership said anything the last time there was a sweep. Not just
Licensees.
Or the licensees, sorry, that's a better word for it, sorry.
We're all members.
The licensees, not to be disrespectful, but how many of them actually even follow along or understand the state budgeting process to know that happened? And I have imagined that most of the licensees would not be pleased to know that their money was being swept into the general fund that's supposed to support licensees. So I think we ought to watch this and maybe even potentially do some messaging now to say, hey, this is on the table. Talk to your legislators.
That's a good point. I think that, there might be a condition to offer anything out there now might be pretty late in the game, but maybe it's worth it. It's worth us talking to Greg. And we've been cautioned a little bit by trying to stay a little under the public radar screen a bit. And so I've been working directly through Kevin Vandaway and Ledge to get messages out there. Governor's office wasn't so happy about that to begin with because they're proposing a 0 fund sweep, and balancing their budget, but they've also, Ian and I have talked about, we need to be standing for ourselves, and so that's what we're doing. Getting the registrants out there fired up, kind of like a grassroots lobbying thing, I think could be taken a little sideways. I'm not sure we've obviously after this, we want to inform, this is what happened, and maybe in the future, we could go back to Ian about, again, protecting our budget, what we can do in the future. We've got some harebrained ideas that I think, which you guys should expect from me. And Ian's laughing, and, thinking about buying the building or whatever, and things like that, but,
I live in that world, and yeah, if you show you have money, somebody's gonna want it. So spend it on something else.
we're hoping, I think realistically, if there's a sweep, we're hoping that they would accept the 440, the House dollars. We could survive with that. I think we're projecting maybe plus $100,000 at the best case setting in the future fund balance per year.
Is that 150 or something?
Yeah, I would say 100 to 200 at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we still have some expenses that we need to start realizing. One is some of our own salaries. However, there are some issues that might come in with furloughs, things like that, that could be brought into us as well. And so we're still waiting to find out what the compromise comes out with, and that'll be basically our map from there forward.
So from what Ian said, that we were in the report, we're considerably less in expenses and software and some of the other categories. Was that something that when we created the budget, we were sort of pretty sure that those were going to take place, and they just never did? I mean, I remember back in the day talking about the software system or Polaris and having this huge price tag, but then it just didn't come. So were we prepared, but we undershot to where we need to adjust budgets?
There's a huge change, a huge difference to the budget.
We anticipated that we were gonna have some costs on the learning management system, and then that didn't really come to fruition at the time. So,
And then also Ian, Paul Batar started it, right? Ian took the handle of this and has done an excellent job of going through the contract with DOL, Polaris, and really honing that in. So applause to Ian and Paul.
Yeah.
For working with DOL, holding them accountable to what they were charging us for. And so to answer your question, when our budget was put together, we didn't have a lot of history, and we did the best we could within our expenses and that we knew. We projected attorney general costs, law tech costs, EDS costs, all the central services costs. Those are going up progressively too, but we don't know where those are going to sit. And yes, we underspent quite a few times our allocation. And, but yet our fund balance didn't increase hugely, so we caught up and we're getting close. Now you see our revenues and expenses are almost even. And we use, so I think we're getting there, and we just implemented the 6% fee increase. That's really starting to materialize here now and moving forward. And so that revenues probably I think very few more probably can start seeing the measurement of that. And we'll be able to adjust it within that, because we want to be as neutral as we possibly can, but then to save for large costs, capital costs. And like Chris said, the learning management tool that we might bring on, I think if we do a software upgrade to our licensing system, we're gonna disconnect it, you can't pay. We have to move forward with some increase in fees, start building that. It's gonna be probably a much larger cost that we can handle even with allocated funds. I think it's still.
I mean, I think, Matt, you brought it up, the fact that, you know, we just raised fees, you know, slightly, but we still raise them and just turn around. Basically, it's,
We knew that that could be a political. Marjorie and I spent a bit of time discussing this a while ago. We knew that the fund sweep could happen before we actually executed formally the increase in fees. However, we knew that without the fund fee increase, we would have to get an increase regardless. Just chose to keep moving forward, and see how that balances out. I have not heard many complaints about the fee increase. I think we probably had less than 10. And so I don't think we have no control. We could explain the fund sweep in a very politically correct way that our registrants would hear, and then help them with a message to their representative, their legislator. And so I think we can do that through a campaign, help it from happening potentially in the future. But does that answer your question? But kind of stir my soapbox, I get.
Anything else for Ian?
No, I just reiterate that we're waiting for that compromise budget, and that will help inform us moving forward. We'll have more concrete items to go off of once the compromise budget is final.
Yeah, I'm hoping when we talk to you in June, there's less question marks for all of us, and we can settle down to our appropriations, so.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank you, Ian.
thank you, Ian.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, agency operations, Chris?
Yeah, so in the packet is the licensing program reports. So I don't know if any of you had a chance to look at it, but if you have any questions about those, let myself or Vonna know. So there's 3 reports: applications received, issued, and the number of active licenses. Questions on those?
That's these tables, and yeah. Nope, I like getting those.
No questions?
You want to point out the received is spelled wrong.
Spell check.
Well, spelling Nazi now.
What happens, Mike? You say one word out of place and it's your fault forever.
Yeah.
Just don't it. Just don't it.
I can't wait to review some of Dave's stuff.
You'll find plenty of spelling errors.
Okay, so I'm happy to report that our new lease for our office space has been fully executed, and that goes into effect June 2026. So we're still finishing up the current lease, but we are now set in place for, it's 5-year? 5-year lease. So starting in June 2026. So that will be.
That's your current location?
Yeah, the same location we're at now.
NBA 18, Mackenzie, Lee.
So what happened? I may have missed this at the last meeting, but you were worried you'd have to come to a DS.
We were concerned last year, there was some rumblings from OFN that they were trying to fill state-owned buildings.
Yeah.
We were able to advocate. Ken did a great job on that. that we're better off staying where we are. I mean, really, our rent is very reasonable for what we have. It's a good location, so we worked with OFM and DES, and there's some items that need to be dealt with by the landlord that are clearly outlined in the lease. So he's working on them now.
Hopefully the men's restrooms, right?
Lighting.
Yeah, and then
Exterior.
we'll think we're gonna do some improvements. Price is helping lead
We're gonna do some
improvement
sound.
development team,
Oh, yeah.
paint colors,
Aesthetic.
soundboard.
Well, that's,
Now that we know we're gonna be there a little bit, we're gonna make it a little more aesthetically pleasing.
that's good. So that's good for the budget too, that.
Yeah. We're keeping the collection right after this. Just bring all your paint and.
I was gonna say, I got a bunch of paint at home. I can-
Yeah, exactly.
So we're very glad that we get to stay where we're at. We recently, very recently, and we're still really in the progress of doing our very first risk management analysis. So we've been working with the risk management folks at Department of Enterprise Services, helping us get through the first one so that we can do all the subsequent ones on our own. It's been a heavy lift, a lot of meetings, but we've, as a group, have clearly outlined some risks that we have and what are the gaps that we need to fill. So we're still in the process of rating, and so we're not quite at the end where we say these are the 3 that we're gonna work on this year. We've got the list started, and this is a requirement. We have to do this, and it goes into a central program
All.
origami. Don't know why.
Which is what Ken was
They said
stating.
connection now between the
Yeah.
different.
So it's been an interesting process, and we're actually doing fairly well as far as risk management. So I think that's come out in all of this, is that we're doing a pretty good job of it. So more to come on that, I guess. Another thing that's really, really good news is our law review exams are now online. No more paper. Huge shout out to Kevin. And this lifts a time and effort burden from licensing staff and Bryce, who's really stepped in to help grade all of those law reviews. So now it's online, and the links are live as of yesterday. So this is essentially what it's gonna look like.
You can go in and test it.
It's the wrong
See if
thing.
you can
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, can anybody go in and do it?
Because all that happens is you go through the questions, and if you answer them all correctly, a certificate comes up. And then they save the certificate, and then they upload it into Polaris, saying, oh, I passed the law review. And if you fail, it says you did not pass, take it again. So this is not a final where we want to be with it long-term, but it is a huge step in the right direction. You know, eventually when we get a learning management system, we'll move it over into something like that. But just having it off of the plate of the licensing team is, right, you can, yeah, so you can fill in. Go ahead and fill in.
Pass percentage.
Yeah, it gives you a,
It's gonna be using 80%.
80%, right?
yes, it's at an 80%.
Then they take their certificate. Well, we go to an LMS goal, so I'm still taking it better. The goal would be if there's a big system that helps you, then you're gonna automatically pass. If you can't be able to move forward without passing a certain section.
So you can see the reference to the RCW, pick a question, you get next.
I'm not answering, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna click randomly.
We did it as a group, if we pass it.
You go to the next.
So as you go through it, yeah, at the end, you get the certificate, they save it, or it says you did not pass, this was the rate, I can take it again. So, it does let them know right in the beginning, you have to do this all in one sitting, you don't get to come back to it. So,
Savings.
But there's no inhibition about having a second screen and pulling up the code, right?
nothing on there about that.
So the savings
I mean,
of
it's
this,
open.
about a half of an FTE per year.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a huge savings, right? This is just something that Kevin put a lot of time and effort into. He worked directly with WaTech, with licensing staff. He and Vonna worked on it quite a bit with Greg, making sure, it was on our brand. So we are really pleased about this, and
Kevin's getting a half FTE raise, right?
Yeah.
don't be putting ideas in it. We work at the state, we don't get to do that sort of thing.
Chris,
uh,
I said, well done.
Yeah.
Leading your team to this so quickly. I'm very pleased.
We are so happy about it. I mean, we've been wanting to get this done for a year and a half, and, Kevin's been with us 2.5 months, and he's like, I love this. I mean, I'm not gonna speak for Kevin. I know he's probably online, but anything you want to add, Kevin?
Not sure if he still is. Let's see. I'm gonna pop it off.
Yeah.
There he is. Hey, Kevin.
Sorry, I did miss a bit of that because I was in a meeting with WaTech, but
Speaking of which, anything you want to add about, we're presenting the online law review? I let him know that you are a rock star for getting this done so quickly for us, and working with WaTech and Vonna and Greg and the team, so.
not too much. I imagine most of it has been explained at this point, but I was hoping that this would be a little bit easier and take a load off of the licensing staff so that they can focus on their applications. This in concert with our application review tracker as well, to try to, as people like to say, lean things out. So
Great job, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
So the application review tracker is similar to what Foresight put together for us for the complaint tracker. Kevin did it for the application process.
Yeah,
It is not as nearly as advanced as the case management tracker. I want to make sure that's clear.
Right.
The work
Yeah.
that we did with Foresight was very complex and it took a long time to get it there. What Kevin has done is fantastic, simple, and exactly what licensing staff are looking for. Something simple, but also automated.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good segue into all of the lean process improvements that we're continuing to develop and implement within the licensing program. So like the application review process, we used to have to meet every week and then go through. It was a time suck, really.
Yeah.
And we didn't always have the amount of time we really needed. Now it's all needed. Ken and I get a message, through either me, Vonna, or Emily that says, you have an application to review. We go to the tracker. Oh, it's assigned to me. All the links are there. I can go to it, pull it up with players, look at it. I approve it, the date, we can add comments in there. Back to licensing. It just keeps everything flowing really well. So that's something else that Kevin's got done that's just amazing. We're making changes to the customer service inbox. The plan is to have a form on the website. People fill out, and from there, depending on the subject line that they pick, that we give really an option, it filters through to the appropriate person's inbox. So we're just we're automating a lot of steps. That's to come. We're also working on, changing the way we do work assignments within there. That's going to be implemented over the next few weeks or so. Staff are working very hard at developing desk manuals, job manuals for all the applications, for different tasks that licensing do, so staff's been working very hard on that. It's been such a collaborative effort between Kevin and licensing staff and myself and Mackenzie and Ken and different staff members, and just a huge shout out to licensing staff and Kevin, because change is never easy, even if it's a good change. And staff has done such a great job in just moving forward with it and keeping that excitement going. And I've been through a lot of lean processes, and I'm like always waiting for that resistance, and I haven't really received it. Good questions, a little bit of pushback, which is good because we need to question things, but no resistance. So we're really happy about it.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great.
What is the process to keep this maintained?
Maintaining this, you mean the law exam?
Yeah, the questions, the laws that we cite are still in place and not repealed.
Yes, that's a good question. When we had changes in things before, we went back and modified the questions WAC and ours from RCW. I believe that we've asked staff to take a look at those if they've gone through, but I'm not sure if we have a step-by-step checklist for that. That's something we could put into action with the law review, making sure that the updates and the citations are needed.
It's probably something Kevin's working on.
Yes, yeah, that's
Kevin, you have your hand up. Thank you.
I do have a process about every 2 to 3 months. I plan on working in an update to the system, and inevitably we've tested it as a staff. We've sent it out to different folks to test this before it went live, but there's going to be problems that are going to be found. And I'm not saying that we'll take it down every time a major problem happens, but there is a refresh cycle in here to update the application to keep it up with the times and legislation, RCWs, and WACs.
I would say it was about 7 years ago, the PC committee took on looking at the law reviews and determining whether we were still testing appropriate information. So not just that the question is still applicable in the law, but that we were testing enough and enough variation. Perhaps that should be something that's kind of a 10-year review by the committee.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea at all.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's a good time to start thinking about getting that on the agenda.
Work on it over the next year, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris.
So 4 people have expressed interest directly to Ken or I about the PLS position on the board that was vacated by Mr. Blaisdell. And we know for sure that 2 of them have applied through the governor's office. So soon we'll be able to check and see, get copies of all the applications so that we can look at them, so that we can make support or recommendation. So, yeah, which is good. And let's see. Oh, there have been some improvements and fixes to the case tracker. So let Randy or Jill know if you, as case managers, have any issues. You're still receiving too many emails, or you're not getting the emails you think you should about the cases, or anything seems, glitchy in that process, would you make sure and let us know? And that's it. That's all I've got. Do you have anything, Kim?
No, any comments, questions?
I just wanted to add to that last item about the contract closeout with Foresight. Because we are coming to a close with that, and thank you, Chris, for letting everybody know. Let us know if you have any issues. kind of jumping back to the work that Kevin had been doing or has done with the licensing list that they're working on or using now, the work he's done there will then relate over to the case management tracker. We hope that, you know, building on those skills, Kevin is going to be able to help us maintain that and make changes in the future.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I minimize, Foresight's done a very good job for us. And Mackenzie's been right on it with Jill and team of the case tracking program. It's awesome that we have now two really good tracking options.
Any other comments, questions on agency operations? Okay, thanks. Any other items under the director's report?
No, besides the Learjet, we chose to just get assessment this time.
Gulfstream.
We put in for a G6.
All right, item 7, other business. Do we have any guests online?
I'd like to confirm, Doug, is that you, Doug H? I see on the
Yes.
participant. Okay. And we have not had any public guests join us.
Okay. So that's it for 7.1 comment. Going on to 7.2 upcoming outreach and events. That's Greg. Is Greg?
Oh, yes,
online?
I'm here. All right, a few things coming up in the very near future, next week, in fact. We do have APWA has their spring conference in Tacoma, and that will be on Wednesday and Thursday. Also coming up, of course, you've got your zone meeting in May. In June, WSACE Annual Conference. And then I should also mention in May, I believe it's we don't have it on there yet because it kind of came up. We do have a booth that we're going to have at the Employee Appreciation Event for Washington State employees. That's here in Olympia. We'll have a booth over there for that. Jumping back to June, WSACE Annual Conference. And then the other events are board events through the rest of the year. So that's what we've got so far. It usually slows down some in the summer as we're anticipating. You know, we may have a couple things pop up, but this will be probably the majority of what we'll be up to this summer.
Okay, any additions, events that people know about that they want to let Greg be aware of? All right.
Thank you.
7.3, board and staff affiliate involvement, meaning committees or other associations or organizations that you're active, that you would like to report any information to the board members?
I could volunteer. So I'm on NSBE's COBA, which is through all the policies for NSB. We've worked all those, got those through the NSBE Board of Directors. And we have subcommittee now working on outreach and information. That's communication with state societies. So get them more informed and supply them more when they have legislative issues coming up. The NSBE has their annual conference in Kansas City. At the same time, we've got our August meeting here as a Washington delegate, meaning they have like a Congress, each state has a delegate. I'm a Washington State delegate. I won't be in attendance, but all the voting that we'll have done will have been in June. So that's an issue. NCEES committee work is going forward, and it's going to be reported out at each of the zone meetings. So we anticipate some changes. I was on the EPP this last year. And we'll see what happens with some different, one particular exam, depends on board action. That's probably enough.
Thank you, Doug. Anybody else?
Well, I think as far as survey standpoint, I think it's time that we engage at some level with LFCW to ensure that their members know that coming up in 2027, the PS exam is going to change to where the PLSS exam is going to be ready to go and offered. I think something that maybe could be a committee action item of the survey committee is start the ball rolling with how we're going to roll out the PLSS exam, how we're going to use that, if we're going to use it at all.
And just to be clear, the PLSS, you're talking about NCWS exams.
Yes.
Changes they're doing with modules.
Right. If there's no action that needs to be taken by our board, then great, everything's fine. But in 2027, which we have 2 years, so it just went down the radar. But it's something that I think that we need to engage with LCW to ensure that their members know, people know within the industry that if we do decide, our board decides to use that exam, there's going to be some sort of engagement, or at least some announcement that this is gonna,
And that's possibly in lieu of the current exam we offer?
Entirely. It's only covered in the public land survey system.
Right.
So it wouldn't change what we do?
And our test covers both.
I don't think that it's gonna change, but there could be a discussion on whether or not it could change what we do.
Of course, Kevin will have it computer based by that.
Right.
Well, we're saying hold off until we know, but just get everything ready.
Yeah.
Right. So from the activities that I've been involved with NCWS, there's really nothing to report because we're coming in on a new committee cycle. From the standpoint of the Western Zone, we're coming up on the Western Zone meeting in May. Audit committee, there's nothing new to report. NSPS, I know that they are working with NCWS to understand model law, model rules, and it'll be something that the NCWS EPS committee, EPLG is, they're always tasked with keeping up to date on the model laws and model rules. And I think that this board is going to be one that will need to take a look at the model laws and model rules to ensure that we still continue whichever direction we go with that information. We're not a model law, model rule state.
I'm sorry, Aaron, back to the NCWS exam, maybe the PLSS exam or whatever. Would you recommend that one of our land surveyor board members get engaged with the exam as you sunset into your vice president position, and we don't have representation from our board on any of those committees within NCWS.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly, it kind of starts with that committee preference questionnaire, because that's one of the items. Certainly, we should be involved in exam development.
Okay.
That's one of the choices that you get made anyway, so yeah, being active on that. You don't have to be a board member to be on exam development.
Okay.
The exam development committee, right? Yeah.
It's not even a committee, it's the exam development, you're brought down to.
Right,
it
it's
goes
called the
right.
exam development committee, even though it's not one of the formal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, you don't have to be a board member, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one thing on this. So I've been attending, when I can, the meetings of the Washington government surveyors. I think it's called WSGS, Washington Society of Government Surveyors. It used to be county surveyors. They've changed to include other government surveyors. They sort of been languishing a little bit since the start of COVID, but they're geared back up again. They're meeting monthly, virtually, second Thursday of every month at 10 a.m. They've had some really interesting and good discussions. I'm glad that I'm attending to see what the. And I don't know, Matt, if you.
I try to go. I can't always make it.
Yeah, it's on my calendar. But, so keeping an eye, it's just another surveying association within the state that, they do a lot of it's a different work and approach than private, and so it's good to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, that's very interesting. They have a whole separate organization.
Yeah.
Did we have any engagement with DNR advisory board?
Yeah, so I attend the survey advisory board meetings. They're having them next Thursday, so I'll be there. And then I meet with Pat Beeler and David Eisenhower every month. I don't know, monthly meeting with that. So I keep engaged with them too.
Anything coming up that we should?
Not that I've seen so far. I'll let you know after next meeting. They just made some changes. Well, we're to 332 and 30. And we'll see how those go, but yeah, nothing big. They're working on, well, they are working on, they're not calling it the GPS guidebook anymore. They're calling it something else, but they are updating that, and it's going to be more of a live document. So that's something they're working on. Yeah, I'm sure. So, yeah, I'll let you know if anything comes up.
Marjorie, one pretty significant event that I don't see on the calendar here, and perhaps it's been evaluated already by Greg and it's not the right venue for us, but American Society of Civil Engineers National Convention in Seattle in October.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there will be thousands of attendees at that. So just FYI.
Greg, is that something that you were aware of?
Yes, it is. I discussed it with Ken, and we came to the conclusion that it may not be something that we would pursue, but we certainly can discuss it further.
As a booth?
Let's
is
move
probably
that,
what you're
yes.
Thinking,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
is there any other reason to attend and or fund board members to participate
Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
that?
So it's the weekend before our meeting in Pullman.
And then you're gonna click the hype, whatever.
I would defer that to Ken.
So the 11th.
8th to 11th.
Let's put it on our calendar, Greg, and we can put it not as a booth, but as heads up as an event, so we can remind everybody that it's coming up.
Will do.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Very good.
We share.
Do you want a nice,
Maybe I'll have like one of
high-cut?
those nice pathway, like jerseys or something.
Yeah.
See, yeah.
You can face your face down like this. Blue.
All right, that's it for affiliate involvement. 7.4 action items from this meeting.
All right. So we have PC to consider enforcement actions for COAs, project bids that don't have a Washington designated engineer, engineer of record, or a Washington COA. Ms. Short to add Mr. Rasmussen to the disciplinary report. Ms. Lund to represent as the official voting member or represents Washington board as the official voting member at the NCEES Western Zone. And to present to NCEES Western Zone a request that the president-elect create a task force specific to issues with the SE exam, the new board staff to release the state exam results. And, nope, two more. Mr. Fuller as NCEES Washington MBA to submit Ms. Lund and Mr. Hendrickson as Washington NCEES delegates. Matt will get back to me on his attendance. And then lastly, Ms. Gillespie to advance a CR 101 for WAC 19625. Did I miss any?
If I may, Madam Chair, can we come back to that SE request to Western Zone for that item that you said?
You want me to reread it?
Yeah.
Action item.
Yeah. I'm not sure that's what we were gonna do, but
I'll reread it. So, to present to NCEES Western Zone a request that the president-elect create a task force specific to issues with the new SE exam.
see, and I thought we were gonna request it be placed on the agenda to ensure that it's discussed in the agenda at the
I
Western
thought
Zone.
that the discussion was already on the agenda.
It is, but to request, so
So the action item is that the board supports a request to develop this task force specific to the issues at hand.
right, but I think that, I mean, I would take that request and I'd say, Dave, is this something that is even, we're gonna be talking about it on the agenda? What do we do to the request? Because we can't, the zone is not then requesting to the president-elect to develop a task force, right?
I think the intent is that our future president is at the engineers forum.
Right.
So
Well, I think
That's
it
what
goes
the
back to your question. Do we come in saying, we want to make a motion at the zone? And then the zone either supports the motion or the state makes a motion that potentially goes to the national council as a motion. I mean, that's what you asked earlier, should it be a motion? And I said, I don't know, because I don't know kind of that whole process.
Well, there was a motion.
Our board made a motion to support it
So
moving forward.
maybe for clarity, could you find in your scribbles where that motion is?
I was
And
disappointed,
that's what she
but I
read as that's what she read as the action item.
Okay.
And so I chatted with Marjorie. What I have is very, very similar to what we have here. only difference really is that the first couple words I wasn't quite sure on. So this is really what I just read is really a simpler version of what I wrote here.
Really? Because I remember exactly what it said 2.5 hours ago.
But you did, I have,
Well, let's play back the.
are we getting the
So
context?
I think yeah, well, the intent, I believe, of the discussion and the motion was to give Marjorie the authority to, as, from our board,
Right.
to address the topic in the engineering
Right.
forum
Yes.
with the future president,
Yes.
hopefully in attendance.
And
Yeah.
feel that there is support of the state board towards doing something, not just support of the state board putting something on an agenda, but support of the state board saying something needs to be done about this issue. It's being proposed that a task force be developed that can discuss it and keep it in a secure environment of that NCWS needs that security, but still have people that can sit in that meeting can help make decisions. So it's, what I hear you saying is proposing an agenda item. There should already be an agenda.
There's already
item.
agenda.
Okay, so it's nice for me to have the backing of the board to say Washington wants this issue to be moved forward. We're supporting, along with some other boards, a task force that is specific to this issue.
So, okay. So I would like to respectfully request that you be the person to speak on behalf of the Washington board on this subject. What I heard from McKinsey is that a letter is going to go to the Western Zone wanting the president-elect to create something, and it's sort of like the Western Zone wouldn't ask the president-elect.
Okay, I will
I mean,
definitely speak of
Right. I think that
on
that's
that behalf.
really what the intention is this board supports going to the Western Zone, ensuring that it's on the agenda, ensuring that we have this speaker, you, speaking about this item. What I heard you say, McKinsey, is we're going to write a letter.
Well, yeah, really just a request on the item, but
Okay.
essentially that's what we're talking about. But what I'm hearing you say, Aaron, is Ms. Lund addressed the topic of the new SE exam at the Western Zone Engineering Forum. What's missing, I think, is the supportive side when the letter comes in.
Yeah, so we had a motion that was approved to support action. And the action that I was proposing was this letter that is being prepared with 3 boards currently, and hopefully others will support it, sign on, whatever you call it. So that's why the word letter keeps coming out, because it's being prepared right now as a letter, so that people have something to say, oh, okay, this is what you're proposing. So I am not going to just go there and say, let's discuss this. I'm going to go there and say, we would like other boards and the zone as a whole to support this request or motion, whatever you want to call it.
So are we seeking support at the Western Zone meeting?
Yes. Yeah. That.
Oh, yeah, I just,
Okay. Yeah.
I just didn't know what I was going to do with the letter, once I got it.
No.
That'll all be in the minutes.
Other than give it to Dave and Dave's gonna give it back
Yeah,
to me.
yeah, secretary.
I'll give it to Liz. Give it to Neil.
Okay. Any other action items from this meeting?
That was it on my list unless anybody has anything else to capture.
Okay, agenda items for the next meeting.
Right, I was trying to think of those reoccurring ones first. So I have nominating committees, recommendation for board chair, and voting. And then we have the changes to the work experience verification forms coming back in June. And assuming we're going to be having an NCES Western Zone meeting update. Anything else?
I think you should probably anticipate a CR 102 on the 196.
The conclusions from Soapbox.
CW 1843. That's not so.
I know, I'm just,
It is going to be a joint presentation by the PC and the EQC.
That needs to jump on it too.
43.
and then
No, we've got an attestation that we want.
I think that's a standing, agenda item now, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah,
Oh, succession planning.
that's in the executive committee.
Oh, those are somebody's agenda.
Yeah. All right, motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
thank you, Matt. This was a wonderful place.